Yep.
Regular meeting of the Prospect Heights District 23 School Board to order at 7.
Mr. Bednar.
Present.
Mr. Gradanis.
Present.
Mrs. McClaney. Present. Mr. Nord.
Representatives of our most important people in the district, our students. We're liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So if our students could remain standing so we can see you and invited you special. Did you read the letter? Two kids from each grade level in reading and in math. Some of you were even the highest in both. Scores for our district. And we look at all these numbers and we find out how well we're doing as a school. And you know what? It's right there. So we have great data to talk about. How boring. We'd rather instruction. Can you talk a little bit about the data and why they were selected and how?
Yes, we chose 2 students from each grade. We took it 2 other times. One time in the winter in December and another time in the spring. And from the fall when you first went grade level, so all the classes in all the schools were obviously paid off, and that is why we invited you here. So congratulations.
We didn't pick the best student, the highest score, because that's important to us. Go ahead in the back. I saw your hand in the back. Go ahead again. I may never, ever, ever be able to slam dunk a basketball again. And I can get closer toward my goal.
What is one of your guys' favorite, any one of you, favorite things to read to help your reading grow?
I thought Sophie was going to jump in. Go ahead. Okay.
Oh,
This-
so what grade are you in?
Like a kind of short book.
What grade?
Adventure?
No, the ones
Oh,
that are hidden right now in the library.
battle books.
The battle
Oh,
books.
the battle books at Sullivan,
'Cause
yeah.
that'll be fun.
They mentioned some kind of check.
Could you tell the difference between the beginning of the year and the end of the year? Or was it just so natural?
Can you tell us why? What was it about? Kind of felt like you were having us share anything? I know you had no? Okay. All right. Well, parents, we thank you, and we have homework. There's a letter and a yard sign for you whole area. We'll try to take a group picture, and then we'll pass out all the certificates and the yard. So one of the things that we just, in terms of highlighting the students, they really do span from students to historic, because that's really what we're all about, is every student growing to his or her potential and really capitalizing on that. So sign of appreciation and of our pride in them. So, and Eleni, I didn't mean to like besmirch the good idea of data in our students. So
I do love that you're basketball intelligent.
yeah, yeah. And yes, I could. Way back. We're really excited that Eisenhower, Betsy Ross, and MacArthur were all designated as commendable. And on all the different sub-scores this next few years until they get to the full complement of data. We thank you all, our school board members, for your dedication and service to District 23. Again, this is a volunteer in committees and meetings and hours of preparation. So on November 15th, next week, we celebrate school board member appreciation. We attended the North Cook Chapter 2 process, and so Carol Botwinski, distinguished board leaders, did the presentation that we'll be sharing at the roundtable during the conference. We're presenting Saturday morning. For all those attending the conference, very items on the right-hand side. If there's any questions, please let us know. Looks like a good slate of themes that will be of interest.
I like the presentation that you guys had. District community to be together, right?
Right.
Which they rarely are.
Right,
So I
right.
think that I thought that both of those were could be. I don't know.
Every 20 minutes, so. Awesome, well, thank you, yeah, we have good stuff to share. I think, our goal is
Love your presentation is I can't
Yeah.
even.
Wingdings.
Yeah, the whole
Yes.
thing.
Oh.
Maybe it's a secret.
I sent it directly as a PDF, this, because
I'm
I,
sure it
probably
was a
because I
conversion. It was a
uploaded it.
conversion
Yeah.
to the board, so
Oh,
I'm
got it.
sure.
But I uploaded it
I-
here.
okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm
Or-
really hopeful, Carol, this is what it's gonna be like.
Yeah,
when you guys
right,
get
it could
it.
be. People would really
Yeah,
intrigued.
keep 'em guessing.
They're gonna wanna
Keep 'em
find out,
guessing.
what the heck are they trying to say?
I'm really excited. I hope you guys can record that and share it with me.
Yeah, yeah,
On this,
for sure.
the tap dancing part of your presentation.
Uh-huh, yeah, we'll do a screencast. Is it like 1:30 till, I don't
I
know,
think I could join mine.
let me know whenever I need.
Zoom me in.
Want
or
me to
just-
FaceTime you?
Yeah,
Will
FaceTime
you
me in.
remind me where I'm supposed to be and when?
Yes, 3 sessions.
Yeah.
You do it 3
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
So by the third
It'll
one,
be fabulous. That's probably the one you wanna go to.
fabulous.
Yeah.
We
That
won't
is the
need the
word.
PowerPoint
We'll
for
have it
that.
down.
He might be making the
We might
slam
have a
dunk by
chorus.
then.
And I did request, we're table number 22, and I said, can't we be table number 23?
Yes.
Seriously.
She said no, but I did that, and she looks at me like I'm crazy, which I get a lot, but, yeah, I said, can't we just be 23, table 23, for District 23? No,
You know, when you get there.
we'll just
Maybe
swap
trade
with somebody.
Exactly.
I'm fine with that, I'm
Yeah,
fine with
except the
that.
math will be all right, you know,
There you
people
go.
wondering
They're
around.
like, why are we?
All right, moving on.
Moving on, at your place, you have a copy of the soon-to-be-released D23 Community Connections newsletter. This is the newsletter that we produce 2 times a year, once in the fall, once in the spring. It highlights a number of different programs. This time, we're highlighting, of course, our Building a Better D23 project, but also our dual credit high school robotics program, our outdoor learning spaces, our cross-country teams, and a couple of other important stories. One of them that's my favorite is on the last page. We did a little shout out to the teachers that come home, and we have a number of teachers across the district that were students here, but Nicole, Joe, and Heather, Katrina, we've got a whole bunch of them, so Jill, right. So just a fun little kind of a story that kind of perked up as we were kind of brainstorming some neat things to celebrate. So we're putting final edits to this, and then we're looking at this hitting homes, all the residents in the community, probably the week of Thanksgiving, which gives us one more opportunity to remind folks to complete the Building a Better D23 survey, which should be reaching homes tomorrow or Friday. They've been processed, they're in the mail now, so they should get delivered in the next day or 2. And those are our communication items.
Okay, next we have committee reports, and first is buildings and sites, and Kevin will report.
All right, we met on the 3rd. We talked about summer work, and just I think the main context was making sure that we ordered materials on time, given the shortages of materials and the protracted timelines for getting materials. Wanted to make sure that we were timely in getting things ordered. I think there's some stuff in the discussion tonight, possibly.
That's right.
No. But we talked about talking about 32 vertical, horizontal climate master units that are going to be replaced. that'll be coming out of Fund 60, and will be purchased and installed by MCOR. Talked about the 22 projectors over at Ike. To start, hopefully over Christmas, at least putting in the outlets. Some of the rooms over at Ike are able to, or are going to be done on a different wall, and so they'll be able to maybe do some before they tear the other ones out. So they'll be able to get a head start on some of the work, but definitely trying to get some stuff over Christmas. And we talked about having discussions with the PTO to remove the old electric sign, the electrical sign. I wrote electrical sign, but it's the sign that has electricity in it on Schoenbeck, because it's not really used anymore. So between Sullivan and Ross, and so that I think it is agreed is that
Yes.
that is going to be taken
Mhm.
out. Yep. And then we'll be talking about Arlington Heights Park District. We talked about the park across the street from my house. About Arlington Heights Park District possibly considering kind of discussions about the property and what they're going to do with it, and what we want to do with it. Talked about annual life safety inspection done by the regional office. They came by, apparently seemed very happy with what they saw. IEC. We talked about we're seeing an average gas price being extremely inconsistent, I think, as we probably have all seen in our own homes. But the gas contract is coming due. We talked about the fact that we were able to lock in for the next year, but that we're going to continue to look at possibly whether or not we should move to a bid in the next coming year for, I think, both utilities. That's a good idea. Talked about the Brocade trial, which is sensors. Is this something that's going to be discussed differently?
No, you got it, you're good.
No. So we talked about a trial for some different types of testing equipment, like air quality sensors in the bathrooms, and excessive noise sensors, and some cameras not in the bathrooms. Very interesting. But the trials would include cameras down the hall. We talked about a meeting with Motorola Solutions to also discuss the same. Finally, let's see, we've got nothing notable, lost overtime, and then new business changes in the maintenance department. We talked about some minor changes relative to some vacancies, and one of the maintenance crew, Tommy, I assume would be something that you would.
Coming up in one of our personnel
Exactly,
reports,
that's what I
right?
think. So it not much else other than that. It was a pretty routine discussion this month. Awesome. Thanks.
Any questions? Thanks, Kevin. Next we have finance, and that's Brian.
Yes, so we met last week. I think that the primary item, which is in the packet tonight, right, was a review of, Nick from Baker Tilly was there, so that we reviewed the audit with him, and, I guess that there was really, that he had no, overall that the audit looked okay,
clean
right?
audit,
And
yeah.
I mean, I think that we have a transition this year, right, to accrual accounting. But it sounds like it sounds like it's becoming a little bit later than we had
January,
originally
yeah.
anticipated. Okay. Yes, so that's in the packet. We talked about the tax levy process coming up. What do we have to do related to that tonight?
Tonight, we're gonna, I'm gonna go through a presentation on the tentative levy.
Okay.
We did get our numbers from the county,
Okay, so we
literally
got
at
everything.
9:30
Okay.
after our finance committee meeting.
Okay, please.
So on Friday, we went in and made some adjustments.
Okay.
But we'll talk through that in a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
We did talk about, I think as we mentioned here, the 214 treasurer has changed, based on personnel changes there. We had a tax review board update, which is in tonight's packet too, about just the tax, the tax process for Target primarily, right, and the adjustments that they come back and ask for, fighting against the proposed taxes. An update from the Prospect Heights Joint Review Board about the TIF district. It sounds like that it's still. Is there a time? It's still kind of unresolved, right? The new development there.
They've not finalized the sale of the property
Wow.
yet.
Yeah.
They were close, and then they've both sides have sort of backed away from that for now, is our understanding. So they're still in negotiations to work out that sale, but if the sale falls through, then the property's back to ground zero, and as is the TIF discussion.
Yeah. And then I think, and then the last thing, which is in the packet tonight as well, is the renewal of the website agreement with EMS Link. And that was really it. I think the big thing was the audit, which
Yeah.
Amy's going to go through in more detail here tonight.
Any questions? Okay, thanks, Brian. Next is NSSEO, and that's me. So I was at the NSSEO Governing Board meeting last Wednesday on the 2nd. And as always, they start with shining stars, and Anna was looking at the agenda. She says, "There's no shining star. Who's the shining stars?"
So you are.
That's what Judy said.
Oh,
That's right.
that's so nice.
So the board were the shining stars, so it was very nice. Then there was a presentation on the audit for 21-22 audit by Eder Casella and Company. The board puts together a committee of 2 or 3 members, and they review the audit, so they did that before the meeting. I forget the fellow's name that presented, but he went through the audit and what they saw, and there were no findings, so the board approved the audit for 21-22. Then Judy did a quick run through of ongoing issues, staff shortage, funding, RTO, all of that. You know, it's kind of, nothing has really changed, but it needs to be kept front of mind for people, so that's what her efforts are. So there was a presentation on their continuous improvement plan on goal 3, which is supportive, collaborative, and person-centered learning environment. NSSEO is using a software package called Humanix to measure climate and culture in the organization. So there was a representative from that company that was presenting on the findings of the survey, and the findings were very positive. He was saying that they're comparing it to other experiences he's had in business, and he said that the findings were very good. And often he explained a little bit difference of how they view climate versus culture. And he said usually in an organization, one is good and the other is maybe not so good. But he said that the finding, at least according to the survey, was that NSSEO has a good climate and good culture. And the participation rate was 84%.
The person that was presenting, was that an employee of Humanix?
Yes.
Okay.
Probably.
It
Okay.
was,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the owner, I can't remember, I didn't write down his name.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was the CEO.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
so, and they had an 84% participation rate across all of NSSEO, which that's a pretty high percentage of participation. Then there was a presentation of the NSSEO RTO plan, the restraint and timeout plan. You might remember that all schools are, after the whole RTO expose or whatever, all schools were required to create a plan, an RTO plan. But special ed co-ops were not required to create a plan, but NSSEO put together a committee and has been reviewing instances of RTO or behavior problem instances, and has been taking data and has done debriefing on every instance, and has, as a result of all that, has come up with their own plan. So they were presenting that. And with that effort, they found that the instances of requiring significant intervention has diminished because they've found alternatives to address the issues. So. And Human Resource Department update. The new school resource officer was introduced. Corey Dugan, D-U-G-A-N, is an Arlington Heights juvenile detective and police officer for 19 years and is an active member of the community and a father of 4. So he will be going through some training, and then he will start as the new NSSEO SRO. And he's the school resource officer is usually at Timber Ridge, but they cover all of NSSEO. There was some updates on staffing and their recruiting efforts and mentoring and training, and Brad Carter, who did the report, said that ISBE is saying that there are 5,300 openings in Illinois for education staff, and of that, 60% of them are for special ed. It's pretty significant. And then the business services update. The board approved a resolution to start developing the fiscal year 2023-24 budget. So the first meeting of that committee will be in January of 23. There was an update on the foundation, the NSSEO Foundation. They held their bingo night on the last board meeting was, yes. That's their big fundraiser. They had over 150 attendees, and the event raised over $14,000 for the foundation. There was an announcement also that NSSEO was awarded the U.S. Department of Justice Community-Oriented Policing Services Fiscal Year 2022 School Violence Prevention Program Grant. So there are, in Illinois, 15 of these grants were awarded. And NSSEO will receive $315,000 for this grant, and the funds will be used for projects including strobe fire alarms, alarm systems, parking lot cameras, and improved PA systems. And then there was a short closed session to talk about the superintendent search, and that was NSSEO. So any questions? Okay, so next is community relations. And that is Becky.
Hi guys. We haven't met since our amazing Fall and Fun Fest, which was amazing. Kudos to the team for pulling that off. It was a beautiful night and a lot of fun. but we have a lot of stuff coming up because what is fall in a school district unless we are busy? So we just finished up the Family Fall Fest, which was a ton of fun. Like I said, the rainbow cone line was so long, no one ever got to get any.
They ran out.
Yeah, it was amazing.
You can never have enough dessert trucks in these
No,
days.
right? The tacos were amazing. Like
Yeah.
everything about the night was great. The popcorn was fun. It was great to see staff there too, and they were interacting with the kids, and it was just really a lot of fun. So, the Halloween parades and parties went off without a hitch. Again, beautiful weather. The kids all got to. The pictures have been fun to see on all the social media and everything that's been going on there. So a lot of fun, and I know the kids were excited to get back into that. We have basketball cheer and poms started at MAC, so that's ongoing. Half of us have heard how amazing our kids are so far last Thursday, and the other half will get to come tomorrow night and hear great things about our kids and the growth that they're all experiencing. So if you are here tomorrow night, that's what's going on.
Parent-teacher conference.
For parent-teacher conferences. The Veterans Day Assembly, was that today?
Sullivan had
Today.
a series of speakers that came in and talked to 4th and 5th grade today, but tomorrow is
Yes,
the
and then
assembly.
tomorrow is the assembly at MAC, but the Sullivan one was
Sullivan.
today. Like we shared earlier, the survey is going out in the next couple of days to mailboxes, so be on the lookout for that, and we need those back by the end of November. November 30th is the deadline on that. The American Education Week is coming up, and so there will be a staff appreciation on November 14th at 2:30. So if any board members are able to come and help out and volunteer
Yeah, Monday afternoon.
at 2:30.
Where at?
At all of the schools, we're gonna be, actually Ross Sullivan will be combined into one location. And then one at MAC, which will cover all of our ESP staff, as well as MacArthur, and then Eisenhower.
We're gonna divide and conquer.
And it's all at 2:30.
At the same time.
Yeah, we're gonna do it all before the staff meeting that starts 2:30, 2:45, depending on the school. And we're gonna have a pie-tastic,
Hybrid
pirating good time with different
Pie.
types of pies and toppings and coffee and just a nice little treat for everyone, just as a gesture of
like-
appreciation, yeah.
Tie in 3:14 somehow for
Yeah,
pie.
if they do it in March,
Yes.
right.
Oh gosh, guys, that was the math teacher in me. Sorry. Like, could it end at 3:14 or something?
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, that's it, we'll end at
Yeah.
3:14, that's
Yeah.
perfect.
right? Like, you gotta throw 3.14 in somehow. Okay. The Community Connections newsletter we just talked about is also gonna be hitting the mail soon after some final revisions that plans to go out the week of Thanksgiving, so be on the lookout for that. And then we get into all, one thing that's not on here that I know is happening is this Saturday is the Wolves game.
Oh, right,
The
Sullivan Chorus.
The Sullivan
Yep.
Chorus will be singing at the Wolves game on Saturday night. So if you, I actually have extra tickets if anyone wants to come join and hang out and watch the Wolves and listen to the choir sing. It's a lot of fun actually. BPAC winter activity, gingerbread houses at Ike on December 1st at 6 p.m. And who's that? That's open to every BPAC group.
Yeah. And did I forget to put the hot chocolate run?
That is not on here either. That's this
Oh,
Saturday.
yeah, that's
as
this
well.
Saturday morning. You can register in advance or register at the day of. It's gonna be a
It's the
little
hot chocolate walk
or walk or run, and you don't have to do it while drinking the hot chocolate. That's, it was a clarification I asked for as well.
And strollers are allowed.
Strollers, families.
Wagons.
It's gonna be a little chilly, so
The
that'll help
chocolate
people
will be
walk or
hot.
run quicker.
The chocolate will be hot.
Yeah.
The MacArthur Orchestra concert is December 7th at 7 p.m. The MacArthur Band concert is December 12th at 7 p.m. The MacArthur Chorus concert is December 13th at 7 p.m. if you want to listen to some music, you
Yeah.
have a lot of
Yeah.
opportunities. December 15th is the District 23 Heritage Night at, from 5 to 7. That is coming up.
We get Betsy Ross Sullivan.
And then the Sullivan Band and Chorus Concert is December 19th at 7 p.m. There is the Eisenhower Early Childhood Winter Concert, December 20th at 5 p.m. The Sullivan Orchestra Concert, December 21st at 7 p.m. And then Ike Ross Sullivan Winter Parties will be December 22nd, which will be our last day of school for winter break. That is everything. I feel like there's one more thing that was not on here, and maybe it's not really happening. Early Childhood Family Thanksgiving Feast.
It's next week.
That's
Oh, that
next
is
Wednesday.
Next week. You're right.
16.
Yeah, so the Early Childhood Family Thanksgiving Feast is next Wednesday at 5 p.m. I think I got it all.
Just a few things.
There's just a couple things happening.
Yep.
Lots
Science
of
Assembly at Ross Sullivan's. All of those events, by the way, all of those concerts, as well as the basketball contests and further future sporting events, are available live streamed or recorded at the MacArthur YouTube page, including our Veterans Assembly tomorrow. That'll be live streamed for those folks that can't make it, or if they want to watch it again from home. So if you want to experience the band concert over and over and over again, you can do it there as well.
There are also, I know the Sullivan musical auditions are
yes.
coming up as well. For the
Mhm.
musical will be Frozen this year, for anyone that is interested. That will be happening in March.
And then tomorrow morning for that, for the MacArthur thing, our friend Pat Chester is coming in. He's gonna be
Yeah.
there for that.
That's gonna help welcome, as he always does, yep.
Will you list all these in the board updates?
Yes, yep.
Carol, you didn't take copious notes?
I took notes, I don't know that they're copious.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're legible.
No, I'll include them all in our board update, yep.
Okay. Next is the consent agenda, which includes approval of the regular meeting minutes of October 12th, 2022, the special meeting minutes of October 18th, 2022, the personnel report, and the November tuition reimbursement.
I move to.
Anybody
oh,
want
any questions?
Need to take anything out of the list? Okay. So, motion then.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved by Becky, seconded by Bryn. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bednar,
Yes.
Mr. Grodanis,
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney,
Yes.
Mr. Nordmark,
Yes.
Mr. Novak,
Yes.
Mrs. Bitwinski.
Yes, motion passed 6-0. Next is the financial report. And was that you,
Yep.
Jim?
I had the financial packet and had a couple questions, nothing really too extensive. So I move to approve the financial report as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Jim, seconded by Kevin. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bednar,
Yes.
Mr. Grodanis,
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney,
Yes.
Mr. Nordmark,
Yes.
Mr. Novak,
Yes.
Mrs. Bitwinski.
Yes, motion passed 6-0. Next is the superintendent's report.
So as I mentioned earlier, annually we present to the board and the community sort of a summary of our assessment data. We are very fortunate and appreciative for the relationship we have with ECRA Group that facilitates that for us and supports us with professional development and consultation. And we're joined tonight by Dr. Eleni Spiron of the ECRA Group. And she and Dr. Zaire collaborated on the presentation that we have. So we'll walk through that and share the good news. Yeah.
Hello, it's nice to be here again.
So we are here to talk about the state of the district
From the assessment perspective, and I will be presenting with Dr. Zayer tonight. And so we're going to talk about your results on the Illinois Assessment of Readiness, the IAR, the state test, both from a proficiency as well as a growth lens. And so we're going to just kind of, do you want?
Christian? just-
Next slide.
Oh, next slide. There's a helper tonight. Wonderful. Okay, next slide. Oh, let's go down. Okay, right there where it says. Okay. So we're going to start looking at math proficiency. Can you go down just a little bit?
Yeah.
Sorry, go up a little just to grab the right. Yeah, that's good.
Perfect.
Okay, so this is the historical trend over time in terms of the percent of the students in the district as well as the state that are meeting the proficiency benchmark. And you can see we start in 2006 and go all the way to 2022. And so the good news is that the district does overall perform better than the state average. And that difference, if you look at that very bottom row, by which the margin by which you're outperforming the district, if you look at 2022, it's actually the largest that it's ever been. And this is on math, so again, that's good news. What you see there with the dotted lines, those are just as a reminder, those are all the policy changes that the state has made. So at some point, it was the ISAT test. They introduced different cut scores, and that's why you see that dip there in the 2013 school year. Then there was another dip when they introduced the PARCC test, which is the consortium test that kind of leveled off. And we have the IAR test, which is really the same as the PARCC test. So these are the math results. So next we're going to go, next slide, we're going to look at the ELA results, English Language Arts.
Just the one thing from that slide though, I mean, I guess when you look at the IAR from that our numbers for 2022 for math were actually higher than they were in 2019, right? And so I guess, like, to me, that was the part that stood out the most, all of this, right? That we've actually improved from pre-COVID, right? From a math perspective.
Right. Yep.
Even during the pandemic, they still had a lot of growth, so.
Okay, so now with ELA, it's the good news is that the district does outperform the state average, but when you do look at the difference, that margin there is smaller in terms of how much the district is outperforming. And that's kind of the theme throughout the presentation. The district's definitely doing better on math and English Language Arts, but you're still doing okay on the English Language Arts as well. Okay, so now we're going to look at, next slide, we're going to disaggregate the information. We're going back to math by grade. And so you will see the district is the dark blue line. I'm sorry, yes. The district is the dark blue line, and then the state average is the light blue line. So in math, for every grade that takes the IAR test, the district performs higher than the state average. The margin where you see that start to narrow a little bit is 4th grade. Okay, and then the...
Do we have any historical data on this to see if there's like...
Yeah, by cohort, we have
if it's you know a trend, like it just goes up
For
and
that
down like
class
that.
or
Yeah,
something,
either
yeah.
the class or
the
is
grade.
it typical that you know you see a good score in 3 and a lower score in 4 because it's changed, you know? So I'm
Yes,
just
we do have those charts coming up.
Right, is
One-
it the grade level?
One
or the
showing
cohort?
it grade level over time, and then one showing the cohort over
okay.
time.
All right. Oh, the bar graphs, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
And just kind of a side note too, with 4th grade especially, like we heard, remember the year before, there was the pandemic, and this was kind of like their first big go-round at state test, and so we had heard some anomalies such as like, you know, they ran out of time, you know, taking the test. So like, I don't know if that's totally the cause of that, but that's some of the things that we might have
That's
heard.
this year's 5th graders, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so next we'll look at the English Language Arts. And so you can see that the storyline's a little different in that, well, most of your grades you are outperforming the state average, but there are actually a couple grades where that has flipped. And so in particular it's grades 4 and grade 6, where the district average is coming in a bit lower than the state average. So those would be grades to focus on.
And then when was this test taken?
So in the spring of
Right,
last
so
year.
this was the spring of last year.
March.
The end of year test, yeah. Okay, so on this slide, we're looking at math performance on the IR test by cohort, And so I'll explain what I mean by that. We're going to go all the way to the right of the chart where it says 2021 grade 8 cohort. So those are your students that weren't in 8th grade last year, so they're no longer in the district. But the bars will represent their performance over time in the district when they took the IER test. So the blue bar is where they were in 8th grade. The purple bar is where they were when they took the math IER test in 7th grade. The blank, there's no blank bar, that was the year that the world shut down.
Okay. Yeah, I
the-
was trying to understand this.
Yeah.
It was like, all right, I'll just wait until.
Yeah. So a good thing is you want to see when they finished in 8th grade, is the bar any higher than when they first took the test when they were in 3rd grade? That dark blue bar is a good way to kind of think of that. So, and it's higher than it was in 3rd grade, and it's a little bit, I would say the best performance was probably in 4th grade for the 8th grade cohort. So then we're going to go one more to the left and look at the grade 7 cohort. So you can see that your 7th grade, so your current 8th graders, but last year when they were in 7th grade and they took the IER test, that purple bar is way higher than where it is when they were in 6th grade and they took the IER test. And it looks like it's about the same as where it was when they took the test when they were in 4th grade, and certainly higher than where it was when they took it in 3rd grade. So then we'll go to the left again and we'll look at your 6th grade cohort. So the green bar represents where they were on proficiency when they took it in 6th grade. The orange bar was the year before when they took it in 5th grade, so a little bit higher, but still not where they were when they took it in 3rd grade, and that's most likely a result of the pandemic there for that cohort. We'll shift one more to the left and look at your 5th grade cohort. So the orange bar is where they were when they took it in 5th grade. The red bar is where they were when they took it in 4th grade, so that's nice to see because it's higher. So your 4th grade cohort, shifting one more to the left, they have 2 years of IER data and they're a little bit lower than where they were when they took it in 3rd grade. And then of course, all the way to the left are your 3rd graders. They've only taken it one time, but they're off to a good start. So any questions on the cohort?
It's a little hard to track.
It's
The graph is hard to track. If it was the same color every,
yeah.
for the same class, if it was the same color, it'd be so much easier than having, but in addition to that, just my only comment is, it would be nice if there was like a transparent bar or something so that we can see it's missing other than the fact that it's,
Yeah.
But
I had a hard time tracking this one.
Actually, I think when I was looking at it, I wasn't really understanding it, plus it was on the iPad, so it was a lot smaller, my eyes were really.
Yeah.
But I like how you have it here because it's all that one grade, so you can see the left. If we didn't have that blank area, you'd see
Yeah.
the 5 years or the 6 years.
Right.
The grade 8 did, so they were in the 3rd grade they were at 40, and then they went up to 45, and then they were to 43, and then we didn't take the test and they were down to 40. So they were sort of consistent there. It's interesting that you saw like the grade 6 they were high, then you had the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had now they're there and now they're getting better, right?
Yeah.
Or grade 7 they're like up and down. So it's that class that you're watching there.
Thank you.
Versus, so the representative scores this year is that purple line is the 53 and the red line is the 34 on the chart before.
Yeah.
And you're showing that the 3rd grade class did really well, and in the 4th grade class it looks like from the chart it makes it look like, oh wow,
It's a
there's
drop.
a big difference.
Okay.
But when you see this graph, they didn't really drop that much considering everything that was going on.
You have
so,
to compare the
yeah.
same group of students to themselves.
Yes, exactly.
Because they do stay pretty much together.
Right.
But one of the points of data that we would look at here is, do we see a consistent pattern of lower scores in any one particular grade? To your point, is that something about the content in 4th grade or the
Right.
concepts
Yes.
in that grade that we consistently score lower in? But when you look at the 4th grade scores across time, you see that they're, again, kind of all over the map. So that tells us that it isn't a grade level type of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Real quick question, because if we go back a couple slides, we see that the IAR changed in 2019, like the test changed.
Mhm.
And so is that accounted for here too? I mean, I know the IAR actually didn't change it much and none of these kids were old enough for park, is that right? Or they're all too young for park?
It changed to 2019, it says.
It changed at 2015 and then again at 2019.
Yeah. Since 2015, it's been the same instrument, it was just renamed
Yeah.
Park to IAR.
And none of these kids are young
And
enough
when
for
we look at the
2015.
cohort, it only goes back to 2016. So it doesn't
Got it.
account for.
That's what I was wondering.
Oh, the
Yeah, it
change
doesn't
thing,
account for
yes.
the big
No, they're
drop
not
in
included. They
cut
moved up
scores.
to
So
the-
though, that park to
Right.
ISAT to park is like the current 10th graders
Yeah.
or 11th graders or whatever. Okay, that was where I was trying
Okay.
to track if we had another cut change or
Uh-huh.
whatever.
So, couple things, like, can we go back to where we were?
Yep. We're on math.
So, those third graders, they were third graders last year.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
and they did really well.
Mhm.
And for those kids, that's like the first year that they were really in school, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
And
that-
ever took that type of test.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah, and some of that is I attribute to like our shift in curriculum materials, our professional development in curriculum materials, so they've had that since kindergarten. And so, you know, as they are gaining those skills and they were able to tackle, you know, some of the tests, you know, that would be pretty challenging their first year of
So
taking
we're
a state test.
teaching more of the types of materials they were seeing on the tests
Yes.
because we've seen it for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The other thing I wonder is, in a year or two,
Right.
do you expect these to even out then more?
We would hope to see a little bit more,
I mean, not necessarily, but consistency is what I'm saying.
consistency
Yeah.
across the grade
Yeah.
levels, yeah, I would hope so, yeah. There's always some nuances, but, you know, we'll see.
But I'm just, because of the pandemic, it's,
Mhm.
you know, like you were saying.
A little bit more
Yeah.
variability,
Yeah.
right.
But,
Yeah.
but it's interesting though, because like I think when my youngest one was, they had like some kids that were like super smart in math and everything. So I'm sure you would sort of see that, like, that trend over every year.
Within that cohort
Yeah,
group.
within that cohort group, which was,
Mhm.
you know, so you can say, oh, that class is really, you know, more talented in math than English maybe, or something like that, because it was.
Cause you get one or two kids that bring up your average by.
Well, but I think at that point, there was like a crazy amount of
Yeah,
kids
it's
that
gotta
were
be
like
more than a
really
couple,
good.
but yeah, it's-
It was,
Mhm. I think that the theme you'll hear too, and this is has been a part of our analysis, is our focus on the new math curriculum. Now we're in year 4 of implementation. Means, you know, we've been putting a lot of time and energy into that training. We've got a lot of time and energy put on collaborative instructional planning around that content. You've got new, more modern, more aligned curriculum. So you see that impact in the test scores. Similarly, you see our ELA scores are not as strong as math, still strong compared to the state, but not as strong. And we're
just making
implementing this
changes
year,
to
year
school.
1, so we've got a lot of professional development, a lot of focus on that instructional planning. We've got, so I think, you know, again, it's that direct correlation between what you focus on in terms of PD, materials, support is gonna get that shot in the arm, and you see that implementation improve, and the same will happen with ELA. And then 10 years from now, when the scores are not as responsive, that's part of our curriculum cycle. That's part of the reason we do that on a cycle.
yeah, it almost would be nice to have like a little footnote saying, you know, curriculum change
Yeah,
in
the
this
year
year,
we
right?
had.
I mean, because that's a great way to see what your curriculum's doing to the scores and everything like that.
'Cause ideally, with any test, whether we're talking about IAR or iReady, we don't do a lot of test prep type things. There's no need to do test prep. If you have a solid curriculum that's aligned to the standards, you're doing it every day. And so when you're facing, you know, an assessment, you should be able to tackle it, you know, to a good level.
Right, I mean, so it would be nice to see like, okay, you know, grade 3 coming in the next
Mhm.
year having a similar score, you
Yep,
know,
yeah.
then you really know that before then, you're really hitting them and you're getting, the curriculum's working all the way through to when they first
Yeah.
jump in.
Okay. All right.
Dr.
Let's-
Zaire, sorry, real
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
Grade 4 and grade 6, their trend lines match for both math and ELA, so that they both go down. Do we throw, like in your opinion, do you look at throwing more resources, support to those two cohorts beyond just curriculum?
Well, we try to, you know, not only just curriculum changes, but like, if those are areas where we see it as a huge trend, you know, after school programs, inviting to summer school, things like that, is something we are looking at, and we do have actually, after school programs starting right now to some of the students that needed that extra support and extra help, and we do have 4th graders in those programs right now. We have opened that to more, but as many as we can, that is something additional aside of, you know, just curriculum changes that we can add more to. But we do have more than just 4th graders in there, but
So the
it's
current
definitely a
5th
focus.
graders?
Those are the current 5th graders, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting, it's just the same trend line no matter what you're looking at. It's-
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Okay, so let's
Next slide.
Okay, so this is the English Language Arts by cohort, and so we'll start all the way on the right with the 8th grade cohort. And so just the one thing that jumps out at me is where they were in 5th grade, and they didn't finish the school year last year when they left there, but and they were actually a little down from where they were in 7th grade as well. And they're almost about even to where they were when they took it in 3rd grade, it looks like. When you look at the 7th grade cohort, they are slightly down from where they were in 6th grade and still below pre-pandemic levels. Those are your current 8th graders. When you go to your 6th grade cohort, they didn't do as well as when they took it in 5th grade, and they are still below pre-pandemic levels when they took it in 3rd grade. Your 5th grade cohort is higher than they were when they took it in 4th grade. Your 4th grade cohort's just a tiny bit lower than when they took it in 3rd grade. And your 3rd grade cohort, once again, they started pretty strong, so just want them to continue as they go on through the system.
Strange.
do you think that has anything to do with learning on the iPad and computers 100% of the time during COVID?
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know that technology connection.
They
Is there
were
anything?
first graders when COVID
Yeah.
hit.
Is there any connection there? I mean, it's not a bad thing.
I mean, some of the teachers then, when we have analyzed some of this data, had mentioned some of those things, like when they're, you know, facing this type of test. And then there was like a whole like untimed thing. They're used to like being more untimed on things, and then the IAR is a timed assessment. So there were multiple factors, and definitely learning reading was even more difficult than math, of doing the small groups and, you know, differentiating instruction with those younger students than it was for, you know, some of the older kids who already had reading down. So that's
Live-
some of the
live through
reflections
it,
our
so I
teachers
know
have.
it. I get it.
So
Yeah.
from a language perspective,
Yeah.
COVID seems to have had a massive impact.
Yeah, it definitely did. There's no doubt about it. It's just, you know, how much and were we able to weather the storm, you know, better than most because of our strategy. So
Okay.
This goes to Brian, your point earlier.
Yeah, so now what we're going to do is try to put more context around the actual scores. We'll go back to math, and we're trying to answer the question, how did the schools do compared to other schools in the state of Illinois? So we're showing both 2019 and 2022 data. The table here is organized in descending order with the column on the right, which is the 2022. So what we did is we took the percent of students that are meeting grade level standards, and we translated that to a percentile for all of the schools in the state of Illinois. And you can see when you look at MacArthur Middle School, the 45.1 was the number of the percent of students that met or exceeded grade level standards. That number, though, translates to the 89th percentile, meaning that MacArthur Middle School is doing the same or better than 89% of the schools in the state of Illinois. So that's really good. And that number, by the way, is higher than where the percentile was in 2019 because it was at 75. So Betsy Ross was in the 79th percentile in 2019. In 2022, they're at the 87th percentile. So again, that's really high, and that's an increase. So that's great. Their performance is the same or better than 87% of the schools in the state of Illinois. And Ann Sullivan, this one's an interesting one because when you look at the percentile, it's the same between 2019 and 2022, but the percent of kids that are meeting or exceeding has gone down. What that means is that it also has gone down for all schools in the state of Illinois. So they've held their relative position even though the proficiency's gone down. But overall, your schools compared to other schools in the state of Illinois are doing very well. So that's the context piece there. Now let's look at the same thing for ELA.
So can I just ask
Sure.
a question?
Yes.
So is the 2019 percentage exceeds for Betsy Ross now the 40.9% exceeds in 22? It's not the same group of kids.
Some of the kids are the same.
Yeah, because it's
they would have been
3
in-
years versus 2.
They
Your
could have been.
second
They could have been
graders
in
at Ross
second
and your
grade
fifth
or third grade.
graders
Right.
Yeah, to fifth grade.
Okay.
Okay, so same information for the ELA, and the school that performed the best is Betsy Ross in the sense that their percentile is 82. And look at where they were in the 2019 school year. I mean, 62 to 82, that's great. So their performance is the same or better than 82% of the schools in the state of Illinois. When you look at the middle school, they have dropped from 63 to 58. And when you look at Ann Sullivan, they have also dropped from 74 to 57. So again, the district's doing better in math and ELA, but still doing pretty well in ELA. So, okay. We're going to go down to the next slide. So to give more context, now we're going to actually switch to the iReady test because we want to try to answer the question.
I'm sorry, just real quick.
Yes.
Like Sullivan had the lowest scores there. Is IR
back
not
up.
part of the exemplary designation?
Is, but they're measuring the biggest part of the exemplary status is the growth piece, and that is basically just their percentile meets and exceeds.
Yeah, they're looking
So
at
they're
growth,
looking-
not
Proficiency.
proficiency
Okay.
in the overall designation.
The
Are you
biggest
growing
chunk is the
kids?
growth.
But I guess just when we see a huge drop in proficiency from Ross to Sullivan, but then you're saying that Sullivan is doing great in growth, that doesn't make sense.
There is a huge crazy calculation that goes into the state scores, and like part of it, the biggest majority is the growth percentile.
Mhm.
Some of it is the proficiency, but then there's also other factors of like how many students took the science assessment, how many
People completed the 5
completed the
essentials.
5 essentials survey. So that it's a big, huge, mysterious math formula that takes
Right,
place.
so like to that point, science assessment's only available to 5th graders and 8th graders. So that's not gonna help Ross, cause the 2nd and 3rd graders.
But
don't get that.
Ross has a score too, and they what do they do?
Backwards map it from
Backwards
the
map it
kids
from
that-
students who had taken it a couple of years ago. So that's how they get calculations for schools like Eisenhower and Ross too. That's a whole separate session, and we need to.
Yeah,
talk
sorry,
about
yeah,
that.
sorry. But when you look at that, it's like,
Yeah.
wow, you know,
Yeah.
Betsy Ross is the best performing of the 3 schools in IIR by far.
Because those third grade scores
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
way up there.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're looking at information to help us understand how the district's performance is doing compared to students in the nation. So that information is not available on the state test, but we do have a standardized assessment that you gave at the end of last year, which is the iReady. So we looked at iReady. We're going to start with math, and what we did is we found the scores that are connected to the local 25th percentile, the local 50th percentile, the local 75th percentile, and then we found the corresponding national percentiles. And so the good news is that overall your students perform a bit better than the average student in the nation. So the average student in your district is actually depicted by the local 50th percentile, which is that green line. So if you look at the information that's in the row on the bottom, you could see that the students overall across all grades that are in your local 50th percentile perform at the national 58th percentile. So that means that those students are doing better than 58% of the students in the nation. The students in your local 25th percentile, collapsed across all grades, are performing at the national 33rd percentile. So they're doing better than 33% of the students in the nation. And then the students in your local 75th percentile, they are performing at the national 81st percentile. So they're doing better than 81% of the students in the nation. So another way to think about it is if you're looking at where the 50 line is, that green line, if your students are performing exactly like the average student in the nation, that line would be flat at the 50th, where the 50th national number is. So you do see a spike, and you see it for all three, the local 25th, the local 50th, and the local 75th in 5th grade. See how it kind of starts to go up? So overall, they're doing a bit better than the students in the nation. This is math. Now we're going to look at reading. The next slide.
Did they start doing the iReady tests when we adopted the iReady curriculum?
Yes.
And then were we doing?
We were only doing
testing?
the iReady math that year though. And I don't know if we started fall that year. Of iReady, just because it was new
Yeah, it was
materials, so I
pandemic,
think
too.
we started in the
Yeah.
winter a little bit later, but yes, we started that very first year of iReady.
But could part of the, like, this third grade cohort that has such strong test scores, could this be from that they were actually started taking the iReady test in kindergarten, which is
Yeah.
different obviously, but taking the IAR at the end of third grade is their 5th math test like this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, that could be.
Correct.
And they have more practice, their
Yeah.
questions it's a long test, but it's very similar to IAR, so they're used to it more.
And that's when the new curriculum started, when they went, that group was in
Right.
kindergarten.
Right. Yeah.
So the new curriculum started, so they've had it from the
Right,
beginning.
but this curriculum started when the third graders were kindergartners, right? Because this is our 4th grade.
Yeah.
Correct, that's my fourth grader.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so now when you look at reading, so if the average student in your district, again, is at the local 50th percentile, that's that green dotted line, and so they are performing at the national 59th, and so that means they're doing better than 59% of the students in the nation. When you look at the local 25th percentile, they're performing at the national 34th, so they're doing better than 34% of the kids in the nation. When you look at the local 75th percentile, they're at the national 79th percentile, so they're doing better than 79% of the kids in the nation. So there's a little bit of a spike in the third grade, it looks like. They can see the local 50th kind of spikes up, so that group's doing a little better there.
But
Okay.
this looks better from a reading perspective than the IAR.
Yeah, they're different they're
Yeah.
different instruments, different measurement,
The
different
IAR
comparisons. This
yeah.
is against the national.
Yeah, and the IAR has ELA has reading and writing. This is just reading.
Okay.
So the writing scores oftentimes brings down those ELA scores.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Now we're going to switch and talk about growth. All right. So in terms of the growth information, what we do is we use the predictive analytics to try to, when you're measuring growth, you have to come up with a projection for a student. So what we do is we look at prior performance and we say, if Eleni's in 4th grade, what standardized assessments did she take in 3rd grade in your district? So we use all that information in your local norms to project where I'm going to score on the 4th grade test that I have to take. Next slide. Once I take the test, the question then is, what did I actually score on the test and what did we project for me? That difference, if there is a difference, is how we calculate the growth score at the individual student level. Once we have growth scores for an individual student, we can average or aggregate those growth scores across students to come up with grade level growth scores, building level growth scores, district level growth scores. So next slide, this is just a reminder of how to interpret the results. When you see a growth score, you're going to see a circle or a dot. It's going to have a color with the circle or the dot, and the color helps you with interpretation. We love to see blue because blue means that the group of kids is growing higher than expected. Green means they're growing in the expected range, and we don't like to see yellow and red with growth scores because that means they're growing lower than expected. So now if we go to the next slide and just look at overall your IAR results, the green that we see in the top, that positive 0.017, just means that overall, across the district, across subjects for the IAR test, the kids are growing as expected. You can see also for the two schools here that their growth effect size, which is in that column, is also green, so that means that they're growing as expected. Okay, so now if we go to the next slide.
And this,
Yes.
this score is the score that's used in the calculation for all of our summative evaluations. So the student growth component of our teacher evaluation, administrator evaluations, as we have their classroom evaluation, or as we do my evaluation, we have my goal evaluations, and then there's that student growth component. We use this score as the measure of that. So points are associated with above growth, expected growth, or below. So we're always happy to see expected growth.
Is this expected in pre-pandemic?
Yes, yes it is, and so that's great news because from a growth perspective, the kids have caught up given where they started the 21-22 school year. Doesn't mean you're happy with where they are on that proficiency benchmark, but given where they started the school year, they grew as expected. So that's the good news, because remember there was a lot of learning loss that occurred where we did see a lot of yellows and reds during the pandemic, so the green is actually comforting to see. And yes, good question, these are pre-pandemic growth norms, which is why the next slide is
That's where
really
I do cartwheels.
exciting because we love blue. I mean, that is, I can tell you that is not consistent across districts that we see at ECRA. That's a wonderful result, higher than expected growth, which is mostly driven actually by the middle school. So shout out to the middle school. I mean, the curriculum, but I don't know.
He doesn't work there anymore.
It'll be cooler next year.
That's gonna be stolen.
It's gonna be purple.
Okay. Purple, huh?
It'll
I
be
like
higher
purple
this
as
year,
well.
huh?
Yeah.
But, are there any insight on the middle school growth that you want to?
I just think, it does have to do with, our expectations, our curriculum change has been different. I think, our teachers have been through a lot of professional development, and I do also, whenever we do these data dives within our district improvement team, they're thanking the teachers from the grade level below for helping them pave the way for doing less, backup work. We have to go back and teach them this, so they're coming a little bit more prepared throughout the years, and we have some excellent teachers.
Yeah, that's great. And so I know someone earlier was asking about the curriculum. So the local growth is actually the way that you monitor the impact of the curriculum. It's not uncommon to see the first year of a new curriculum to see that the growth is lower than expected because everybody's learning the new curriculum, the whole system. But eventually you want to see blue to say, are they growing any better? And so, but this is wonderful. It's great news and something to be celebrated. So now we'll go to the next slide, which is the ELA growth. And so for ELA, it's in the expected range, again, pre-pandemic norms. It's not blue. We'd love to see blue, but we'll take the expected growth as well. So, okay, and then the next slide, we will look at these student groups. So on the left you have math, and then on the right you have ELA. So there's a lot of blues on the left just because of the high overall growth on the math. The one group that we do see the green for is actually the IEP kids on the math, and that they're growing as expected, which is okay, but remember that in order to close the achievement gap that's in the percent that meet the benchmark, where we see the 8% compared to 48% for those that don't have an IEP, we want to close that achievement gap there. So ideally, we'd like to see accelerated rates of growth for those IEP kids as well. And then for ELA, it's pretty much green. There's a little pocket of low growth there for students that are in the other ethnicity. Okay.
And they were kind of laggards on the math as well. This is a small group.
It's only
Yeah.
14. It's only
Yeah.
14
Yeah.
students across the district. So yeah, that's. One of the variables, yeah.
it's the Native American and, multiple racial categories.
Mhm.
So, okay. All right, and now we're going to talk about Fall I-Ready. So that was everything we talked about was all your end of year growth, your end of year proficiency, but we also wanted to give you a preview as to where the kids are doing in the fall. So at this point, I'm gonna actually turn it over to Dr. Sayed.
So the next slide. So we wanted to give you a picture of what's happening this year. So we already finished our Fall I-Ready. Those of you who are parents have probably heard from your children that they have completed this assessment already. This is the Fall I-Ready math, and we have two views. The first view is the standard view. And what this tells you is what percentage of these students are in Tier 1, so meeting, Tier 1, the green, is meeting the standard, meeting or exceeding the standards for end of the year standards. So right now, only 34% of the students and in the fall are meeting or exceeding the standards. But that's okay because they just started school. This is taken within the first couple of weeks of school. They're not expected to meet the standard. That's our job. That's what we do this year. So it's saying 48% are 1 grade level below. That's in the Tier 2 category. And 18% of the students are 2 or more grade levels below. And then you see it broken out by school down there of the level of green, the level of yellow and red. And then they also have placement by domain. So numbers and operations, algebra and algebraic thinking are 2 of the huge major categories. And they are where most of the emphasis are because that's pretty much getting the road to algebra. If they have those solid. So most of the questions, the majority of the questions on I-Ready and in IAR are going to be of those major categories. So this is the standard view, and if you go to the next slide, these are the same kids, same test. It's just how I-Ready has a different view of like calming teachers down. They don't like to see that little of green. This goes to show them okay, they're exactly where they should be at the beginning of the year. So beginning of the year students who haven't had exposure to the content of that grade level, this is exactly where they should be. So we only have 7% of students at the beginning of the year who are at risk, and then 11% in Tier 2 and 82% in Tier 1. So this gives the teachers a little better view of where they need to be. We always keep that standard view in mind because that's the end goal. You want to be there by the end of the year. Any questions on this?
It's interesting that you would conceive of that significance of a makeup where you have 2, 3, 4 grade levels behind it you make up for? I mean, that's interesting.
Yeah, again, those are conceptual, not literal grade levels per se. It's
They're not
concepts
behind.
Maybe a simple
They're just not
refresher
ahead.
kind of-
Yeah.
They're not behind,
Yeah,
they're just not
exactly,
ahead.
and that's, again, right, some of that's summer slide, some of that's, right, when they come back in the fall, they forgot how to do fractions that they mastered at the end of last year, they're struggling, we reteach, and then they get into that green category.
Any questions?
Do you normally see Ike that high?
The
Yes.
last page
Yeah.
is the same.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. So they're coming in, you know, a lot of them know many letters and letter sounds already. They do, even last year when we took this in the beginning of the year last year, it was, remember we looked at this and we're like, wow, they're doing pretty good coming in. So, yes.
Do you test your kindergarten or just first grade?
We test kindergarten now. Last year we didn't test kindergarten in the fall, but they tested like probably 10 weeks in, and then because just kindergarten, they're just getting used to that, and so we give them a little extra time, and then they take the assessment. The same thing happened here. So, yeah, they've been coming in pretty strong. Which is awesome. Some awesome preschool.
Absolutely.
could be some of the,
Mhm.
next slide.
Are
Yeah.
these, I guess, in terms of, you know, I guess just walking through the IAR and then kind of the fall and end of year iReadies, are the, like, in terms of our, like, regulatory obligation to, like, which of these do we have to do for reporting versus which of these are we doing for our own, like, learning and making sure that we're tracking our own metrics and helping our own staff out?
IAR we have to do
Right.
for, state funding purposes, for everything. They do, require a metric to do, growth for teacher evaluation and, administrator evaluation. Does it have to be 3 times? No, it doesn't have to be. But what we do is we use it for our progress monitoring and making sure we have like this temperature check along the way. How are we measuring up to the standards? So that when we take the IAR, it's not a surprise and we have time to course correct. So some districts can do it just like a spring to spring kind of measure, just one time a year, but it's not giving you a lot of information along the way. And one of the other reasons we do this 3 times because of that instructional path that they can use. It helps students course correct. It helps us plan for who we invite to summer school, after school programs. We might get some extra interventions during the school year, so that's part of the reason why we do it 3 times a year. And I'd say most school districts do something 3 times a year.
It's more real-time data too, right?
Yeah.
Opposed to that IAR takes forever
To get back
Right.
and, yeah.
In fact, we don't get those results until the following school year,
Like
so
they
they
just
don't.
came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they came out really late this year.
But, so you have to do 2 different assessments. We choose to do iReady and IAR. Everybody has to do IAR. Other people have done MAP. We've done MAP in the past. We've done AimsWeb in the past. We've done FastBridge in the past.
Mhm.
And we've been consolidating those down to the most useful tool to help us with that ongoing progress monitoring data, student performance data, informative, how are my kids doing at this time data without over-testing and over-testing. So you've actually eliminated a lot of the other testing instruments so that we're really focused on this. Because these tools are so directly tied to the content and the curriculum.
Because do we actually pay for this testing as part of the iReady curriculum package? Yeah.
Part of the
How
curriculum.
long does it take a child to do iReady?
The test is long. It takes, 60 minutes to take the test.
Oh, that's
You
long.
don't have to take it
Yeah.
in the same day though.
Yeah, no.
I was
This is
thinking
supposed to be
you were-
like
Yeah.
a week.
Break it
Yeah,
up.
no.
Oh, I was thinking a
And
day,
then,
but I mean.
no, it
system.
takes
Okay.
60 minutes, about an hour, but it also gives the kids, and this is kind of the new thing with testing, like brain breaks where they're playing a video game in between and,
I took a CD.
things like that.
Yeah.
That was 3
No.
days.
Well, not when you were 5.
long-
When you
Yeah.
when you did when you were 5.
60
right.
minutes.
Yeah.
When you're 5, 60 minutes feels like
Yeah. 3 days.
We take breaks and we
Yeah.
pace it out a little,
Yeah.
because you don't have to do it all in the same day.
But the balance of overall, we want kids and teachers teaching, learning, not testing all the
I
time.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, three times 60. That's, you're not extracting them from it.
No. So this is the reading with the standards view, and we have 27 students at risk for tier 3 in this view, 36% in tier 2, and 43% in tier 1. And they have the breakdowns of phonological awareness, phonics, high frequency words, and comprehension. Comprehension of informational text is always, one of both of the bottom 2 of comprehension is those longer reading passages. As you get up into the upper grades, they have to answer, pretty intense questions, and it's usually something an area where we're working on, which will be a little bit better as we use the new curriculum materials, I believe. And then if you go to the next slide, this shows that beginning of the year view. Okay, it's not as bad as we think it is right now. We're 78%
Yeah, 78%, yeah.
Barely see it anymore.
12 and
78%.
10, yeah.
Yeah, is right where they should be at the beginning of the year. And with instruction and with practice throughout the school year, we should see, that them attaining more of that standards view.
I dropped red altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no red. And do you have questions?
No.
So some of our next steps are, we're gonna reevaluate and look at our progress mid-year using the local growth, seeing what we're doing. We're gonna provide additional professional development in ELA. Obviously, this is our focus area this year. We have new materials and using other data to support. We have a lot of tools within iReady. There is a lot of projection reports. You can use some, as I'm getting ready to teach a math unit, I can see based on this diagnostic where the students might need some extra work, where some students already know this and where I can push them further ahead. So that helps us fill in the gaps. We also want to use some of this data for our intervention process. And we're gonna monitor our tier 2 and tier 3 interventions to make sure that we are, making sure the interventions are working, and if not, why not, and make some changes along the way.
And those are more of those, so that's the group that's receiving more of those intensive supports.
With the new curriculum that you kind of put together, are there tools that, I just know me as a parent, and I'd see this and I'd talk to the teacher during conferences, I'd be like, what can I do? Are there tools that you're gonna be able to give them that kind of align with the curriculum, that the parents can do kind of stuff at home as well?
The parents, we did share some resources when we had the coffees with the parents, like kind of demonstrating our new, some of them have, depending on the resource, does it have like parent help or not? I believe we did share some of that during the our parent coffees. And I know our teachers also do that because that is a frequent question, the parents, especially during parent-teacher conferences right now, like what can I do to help? So,
especially with the reading and writing, because that's so huge for everything.
it's a lot, yeah. But our teachers are working on that, and like, I'd love to get some resources on our website to help
Yeah,
parents
that's
too.
what I'm thinking. Whether it's electronic resources that are part of our curriculum that they can do extra stuff at home. I mean,
It's really just reading and writing.
yeah.
Just practice. Read whatever kids are interested in reading.
We did that.
Have them write thank you notes and have them write letters to family members, whatever. Those kinds of practices have to be really much more complicated than that in terms of ELA. It's
I think that's great.
get them practicing, that's all.
Read.
And I really want us to maximize the iReady path, so after they take this diagnostic, they're put on the iReady path where they know these are the types of questions that they weren't able to master during that. So it's pinpointed directly for each and every student, not blanketed based on a score. It gives them very specific things to work on, and so we're maximizing the usage of iReady in reading and math too.
Which is pretty cool. If you do so many minutes,
Yeah.
you like earn points. It's not so many minutes, it's so many lessons, then you earn points, and then
pass
you get
them,
games.
Yep.
Right, if you have to do 45 minutes of ELA on your iReady path, and you passed two quizzes, you then got points to go play an ELA game. So there's some motivation there to do your minutes besides your mom yelling at you to do your minutes.
Alone should be the motivation.
Yeah.
Kevin,
Yeah.
just the part
Like
of
motivation.
the mom yelling at you to do the iReady minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know if that happens in any of your houses.
No.
What do you mean you only did 10 minutes? You have 35 to go. That's awesome. Congratulations on all the hard work.
Thanks.
I know, right? It's not just the people here, but the kids and the
Yeah.
staff, and it's awesome.
I know. I feel very proud of our teachers. I feel very proud of our students and our administrators.
Sure.
Everybody's working really hard.
It shows, it's awesome.
And thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.
Spira.
Thank
you.
All of our colleagues at ECRA for their support. Appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Alright.
You could stick around if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For 45 minutes? Do I get
Yeah.
points?
Every 45 minutes you get another.
Christian, you can go to the next presentation first, and then we'll take a break for some fun photos. But I think I wanted to give the context of what to watch for. He's got it. There it is. Thank you, sir. So one of the things that we've been doing the last number of years is each trimester just kind of giving a quick snapshot summary of where we're at. And I felt, over the last few years, we've had a number of other variables at play, and this kind of took a back seat, and we presented it more as an information, and we didn't really go through it. So I'm not gonna go through every bullet point, but I do wanna walk through a couple of the highlights, just so that we're all kind of aware of some of the things that have been accomplished here within the first trimester. Again, we're in our final year of the current strategic plan, so we will, we're in that process again of investigating our plan for the future. So we'll also post this on our website. We have all of the previous ones there as well, so we just kind of keep a running log of that. So we've got our strategic plan goals, mission and vision, and our portrait of a graduate for folks to walk through. Again, here are our academic indicators that we use, all subjects green, ELA green, math blue. This is a process that some of the board, you may remember, we've had lots of iterations of this. It still exists on the website, and it's still linked. If you go to our website, you can get to these indicators, although with the lagging reporting from the state, much of this data is pulled from 5 Essentials, IAR, school report cards, so it doesn't get updated as frequently or as regularly as it had been pre-pandemic. But these are some of the updated points, and this is just according to each of our 4 goal areas. What are the key indicators? What those dashboard, tell us, how are we doing, just at a quick glance, for each of our areas.
Sustainable resources.
Mm-hmm. So, again, I'm not gonna point out everything on the board, but, to highlight again, our focus on ELA curriculum began, with the introduction of new materials last spring. We've had a number of opportunities for staff to collaborate. Our upcoming Institute Day in January will be focused solely on the new ELA curriculum as well. And as Amy had shared before, the curriculum that's up for review this year is the social studies curriculum, so there have been a number of meetings already up and running to start looking at that curricular area. Point out again our expansion of our unified programs and Special Olympics programming. That's been a particular goal for us. And the dual credit robotics program with 214 is up in 8th grade. So we're kind of piloting or implementing that for the first time this year. So learning as we go and having a really good start to that offering. Under teaching, learning, and innovation, we are looking at our evaluation process, the process that we used with staff evaluations. That has not formally been fully vetted for 10 years. So The plan that was in place actually was one that we started in 2012. We've updated components of it every year or every other year as we've gone along. But this is an opportunity for us to start from, if we have to build it all over again, what would it look like? And so Amy is leading that process. We've looking at using some different tools that help to make the evaluation process more about feedback and less about just summative rating. So that's one of the key pieces. Hang on one second, I want to point out instructional coaching was a significant push over the last number of years. Our coaches have done a phenomenal job this year. Our teachers are embracing that as a learning opportunity. That instructional coaching model embeds that PD into the classroom, into collaborative conversations. So that's been really good to see. And similar to NSSEO, we have our RTO plan that Chris has been developing and her team, and then we've been implementing that this year. Family and community partnerships has been an important point for us. Again, our communications plan this year, our website we talked about, the YouTube. We've started this year an equity audit. We've got an equity team that has met a couple of times this year. We're in the process of developing a survey and coordinating some focus groups as we look at a comprehensive evaluation of all of the equity efforts that we have, both from a policy level to a practical level. In what ways are we ensuring that our students have access to our programs and services equitably? To what extent are we ensuring that students and families feel welcomed and comfortable and safe in our school environments? So that's been something that's ongoing and that will inform our next strategic plan. We've had those goals of district-wide community events. We've held a number of things in the past. We pointed out our District 23 Family Fest. The Heritage Night event is going to be similar, although I don't know that we'll be as lucky with the turnout as we were for Family Fest, but it will be open to everyone in the district. It's an exploration of one's own family's heritage. So there are a number of stations, one where they may place their, one is a map activity where you place your family's heritage on the map across the district, and it'll have, by the end of the night, it'll have all of the dots of all of the hometowns or originating communities for our entire school district. Some of the customs, the traditions that the kids will learn about, an opportunity to take a look at their family tree and do an activity where they're working with their family. So again, it's going to be a family event, self-paced, but they'll be able to go from station to station as a family and then kind of investigate their own family culture. We'll look, the next component of that is some type of multicultural exchange where I'm learning about other people's cultures. But we're starting with this in December as a nice way to bring our community together again and have families explore that together. And as you know, we've had our fitness nights and a number of the other events at each school. We've got other things planned for the second and third trimesters, reading and other opportunities for family engagement. And lastly, the sustainable resources, as you're well aware, our continued implementation of the Building a Better D23 project and process. And we, in October, presented the midpoint of the long-range facility plan, looking at where we're at with that process. This summer, we began a safety and security audit with representatives from local police, fire, representatives from each school, administration. Carol has participated as a board member. And we're looking at there again, conducting an audit of everything from physical plant concerns or issues or needs, to policies that we have in place, to implementation of practices. So we're in the process now of developing, of doing some focus group conversations, and we'll pull the data that we've been planning on gathering, we'll pull that together, and that'll generate some recommendations for short-term, things that we can implement right away, and then some things that we know will be further down the line in terms of safety, security investigations, investments, et cetera. No, we're doing it in-house. We're using some tools that are available.
Okay.
Outsourced available, but we're doing it in conjunction with police, fire, and our other, and then our own local community. I'll say some of the things, again, we started this over the summer, and right away, we knew that, for example, testing and resetting all of the emergency alert buttons to make, test that annually. That was something that we hadn't been doing annually, but testing, and it wasn't working. So we've had the opportunity, we investigate that, and now Chris Alms went through a very thorough process of testing every office, make sure that it's routed to the right place, and when the caller ID shows up, it doesn't send to 700 North when it's 1 North, showing back at Ike. Some of those kinds of kinks. We worked on making sure we have enough walkie-talkies and some of the training for our outdoor supervision, lunch supervision, and then we're working on signage. Those are some of the low-hanging fruits, like we need better signage just to remind folks. We've got signs out there, but they're a little bit higher and there are fewer of them, so we need more that say, hey, during school hours, this is a school facility, so that it gives us just a little bit more of that type of security.
Are you gonna put something like further west on that path?
Yeah.
Because I think that like, I just noticed that, right? Like when I'm
Right.
out there, like I stay by Patriot Park, but you see
Right.
people like walking dogs into a field filled with hundreds of children. Like, what are you doing?
All the
You
time,
know?
yeah. And that's part of that, again, part of the confusion of, I thought this was the park. No,
Right.
it's not the park, it's school district property.
Yeah.
But then there's an invisible line that is the Arlington Heights Park District,
Right.
so that delineation. But yeah, some of that signage, that came from Chief Bill
Yeah.
Caponegro
Oh, that's
right
good.
away.
Yeah.
Just again, as a low-level type of thing that we can do without much cost and without much investigation. Some of the other things, again, are tied into projects that we're already aware of, cameras, upgrading our doors, entry, exit, locking, the upgrades to the doors and windows. Those are ongoing projects and larger ticket projects, but we wanted to take a more comprehensive look at this again and prep for the next strategic plan.
It's part of that, maybe like just doing kind of like spot testing to kind of have somebody come out and say, it's 1 PM, let me go do a
Yep.
walk around to make sure that there are no unlocked doors. I think
Yeah.
really kind of doing legitimate physical testing.
Yeah, in fact, the last meeting we had, we asked for volunteers from our parent group, parents that sit on that committee, to come in and do some of that spot testing.
Okay.
When I arrive in the morning and I'm, coming in, does somebody stop me and ask me to see my ID, and am I buzzed into the hallway, or are the doors wide open, those kinds of things, just to spot check. We feel really confident about the process and procedures, but testing it is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in fact, we asked for that last night. And I've got students on this committee as well, who will give us their honest opinion about where do you feel unsafe, what are you seeing in terms of practices. We think X, Y, and Z is happening, and then the kids can share their perspective as well. So it's really all about that process of just gathering that data so that we're making really informed decisions about what to do to improve and enhance safety and security. Proactive. And then, as you know, we've had a number of construction projects, and our outdoor learning spaces were launched at the beginning of this year. We've got ongoing furniture replacements and upgrades in our libraries, the work that Amy's done on the budgeting and the audit and the transition to the modified accrual basis of accounting. Did I say that right? Wow, I know.
Wow.
It only took me 3 years. But all of those are components that we put in place and then we'll be enhancing as we move forward. So to summarize all of this, again, lots of words, but we wanted to show you a video that Mr. Alms and Hannah Sutter worked collaboratively on, because it's a collection of photos from the beginning of this year that reflect all of the goals that we had. So you're gonna see photos from the 4th of July visibility and the parade, all the way through to Halloween and Fall Fest. So enjoy. The pictures make it all come to life,
So
and
fun.
just demonstrates how interconnected we are. None of the work that we do is in isolation. Our partnerships with PTO and our other community partners, the work we do across buildings, across the district, that everybody contributes in some way to the ongoing success. So as we wrap up the first trimester, those report cards go out next week. Take a minute to pause and reflect on all that we've accomplished thus far, and then continue looking to move forward. So just wanted to take some time to share that trimester 1 update.
Thanks, Chris, for
Yeah.
putting it together.
It was mostly Hannah, but sure.
Well,
Team effort,
that's the
team
longer
effort.
team effort.
No, thank you, happy to do it. It was hard to pick among all the awesome pictures, it really was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
The other item that I put at your place, connected to the trimester update, is the 18-month, kind of at a glance calendar, although I don't realize this is really small. At a glance with a microscope maybe. But this is just,
No trouble at
yeah,
all.
you can
over
see
here.
it right away, yeah, youngsters.
Perfect.
And these are things that are not set in stone, but they just kind of give us the roadmap for the next 18 months. Yeah. Well, you're just in time for our IASB directed vote.
Oh, that is
It's
perfect.
gonna be you, right?
All right, I even got my little cookie with and everything, so you take.
Awesome. So, I shared in the board packet both the summary report as well as a memo that outlines the recommendations. On the Saturday of the III, Mary Lynn will cast the vote as directed by you all, the board. And so Becky and I actually had the opportunity to go through all of the resolutions and found that the rationale and reasoning from the committee was appropriate and sound, and so our directed vote reflects the recommendations from the resolutions committee itself.
They were all pretty straightforward.
So were there
So-
any questions
Yeah.
or any items for discussion?
Getting rid of it already?
Are you sure you're doing
Yeah,
it?
yeah, he doesn't want it a second longer than.
I'll keep it if you really want.
No, I got it.
I don't wanna take that away from you.
It's all good.
And if
Right, so there are no
there are no
questions?
questions, we'll take a directed vote.
Okay. So,
Do you need a motion?
Yeah, somebody
so,
move.
yeah, we need a motion to accept this report, is that?
Yep.
I move to accept the report as presented.
Jim, was that you?
Yes.
Okay, moved by Becky, seconded by Jim. Roll call.
Mr. Bednar?
Yes.
Mr. Grodanis?
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney?
Yes.
Mr. Nordmark?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mrs. Bowenski?
Yes. Motion passed 7-0.
And next we have the report on our FY22 final audit.
So as Brian mentioned, Nick Cavallari joined the Finance Committee on November 3rd for discussion around the 2022 audit. As he discussed, he shared some details on the single audit and the federal programs audit, which is required for organizations that receive in excess of $750,000 in federal revenue. And then the AFR, a couple items that we talked through on the AFR. It did reflect an overall deficit, which was largely attributed to some unanticipated expenditures, as well as grant expenditures with funds expended out in fiscal 22, and then getting those revenues to be received in fiscal 23. So moving forward, obviously, we're going to be looking at some enhanced reporting in our committee meetings. And then that transition to modified accrual, which will start in January, kind of alleviate this situation moving forward. So if there aren't any additional questions, we could have a motion to approve the audit as presented. It was included in the packet as well.
So I move to approve and accept the fiscal year 2022 audit as presented.
I'll second it.
Moved by Mary Lynn, seconded by Jim. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bednar?
Yes.
Mr. Padonis?
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney?
Yes.
Mr. Nordmark?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yep.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mrs. Bowenski?
Yes. Motion passed 7-0.
And I purposely put this presentation at the end because it's compelling, it keeps
Riveting.
people at home are waiting, they're so excited for the property tax levy
They're all gathering
presentation.
around.
They're calling one another right now, the phone lines are blowing up.
Get on.
Jump on YouTube right now and watch this
Right now.
amazing
Yeah, amazing.
explanation of the property tax levy.
Yeah.
Christian,
Mine was just
zoom
an
in
hour and
on me.
15 minutes. That's why
Yeah.
I'm so late. That's all right. Go for it, Amy.
So we talked about this in great detail at finance as well, and as I had said, at the finance committee meeting on the 3rd, we did not have our numbers yet from the county. Those came in at, like I said, 9:30 on that night after the meeting. And so in the morning then we made some little adjustments so that the document that you guys received in the board packet was slightly different than what we had shared. What we had shared reflected an increase of 8.46%, and what was included was 8.53, so it really was minimal. But when we look at the budget and the tax levy cycle, it really is a year-long process, and those two processes are really kind of intertwined. We start with the tentative budget, which we start in July, and work our way around the fiscal year. If you want to go to the next slide, please. So in November, tonight we'll present the proposed levy, and then we'll publish the notice of public hearing. December, we'll hold that public hearing on the final levy. Cook County typically will make their fund distributions in March and September. However, as we've discussed, this time frame this year has been a little bit problematic, which caused us to expedite the issuance of our bonds to make sure we could avert any short-term cash crunch, really, as we go into this little bit of a delay here. So
Have you gotten like firm dates on when we can expect?
nothing more than I've
Nothing?
shared with you. Right
Okay.
now, we're hoping that tax bills are going out November 15th, which we'd look to potentially get those revenues in within 2 weeks. We're gonna get the escrow revenue right away, and then the rest will be coming to us as people pay their tax bills. The biggest question now for us is, okay, what's gonna happen to the March revenues, right? And so now what we're hearing is potentially 30 days delay, but I will tell you, we had a long conversation today with the treasurer, just talking about making those interfund transfers, and so then he said, I'll just share the story. He said, okay, then when are you going to be transferring all the money back? I said, we're not going to transfer it back until we are sure that we've got both those installments coming in, and we're not going to go back and forth. We've got the bond proceeds in. Right now they're sitting in working cash. We're going to leave them there. We're not going to transfer them to capital projects. We don't need that money in capital projects right away, but we know that we've got 5 months to start spending that money, so we've got a little bit of time, and I'd rather just leave it there and continue to kind of watch those account balances. So that's our plan, but we haven't received anything more definitive from the county on that. Unless you've heard, Mary Lana, we haven't heard anything yet.
I heard rumors it wasn't gonna be until December now, but that was, yeah.
I would be surprised. You're saying that the tax bills aren't coming out till December. That I would be really surprised with, because then you see homeowners that could potentially lose some of their
And
exemptions,
that was,
which is a little bit
conversation
concerning.
that
Totally.
someone was,
Yeah.
You'd have to run to go pay your bill.
Yeah, exactly.
To get it in by year end.
So this is something that we go through just very basic on what is the levy. The levy itself is the amount of money that the district actually requests. The extension is money that we actually receive from the county. The tax rate, really, the county just takes the overall request and divides that by the total EAV, taking into account the property owners and the ownership based on classification. And it really is a vehicle to allocate those levy dollars fairly to all property owners within the county. Go ahead, next one, please. The tax cap, as you know, Cook County is governed by the tax cap within the boundaries, and it really is just a tool that limits growth of assessments of tax bills. So it doesn't cap the assessments itself, but it does cap the growth. So for us, when we were doing the estimate to try and figure out levy year 2021 had a CPI of 1.4%. Levy year, because it is the lesser of CPI or 5%, because we saw CPI at 7, we're going to be at 5% for this year. So what's really important is we automatically will get CPI. Since I've started, we've done the truth in taxation hearing every year, not because we've been required to, not because we've been requesting more than 5%, but strictly for transparency reasons. This year, that 5% puts us right at the limit for which we would have to hold the truth in taxation hearing. Anything above and beyond that, we need to include something to account for any potential new revenue that we would receive for new property. So what we've requested for the past several years is $5 million, just to give us that much of a cushion. Last year we were literally at 1.1. The year before we were at 3.7. We're typically not up near a $5 million new add in new property. I've had conversations with our friends over at the city, with some realtor friends in the area, and they are not seeing anything significant. I did get a printout of all the permits pulled in Prospect Heights just to make sure we weren't missing anything, and we're in pretty good shape. We're not really going to see anything significant. We've had, as I shared with finance, we continue to participate in the JRB meetings. That's the one big development that we really kind of keep an eye on with Lexington Homes, and that right now is really kind of at a standstill. So I don't think we're going to see anything there for at least another year or so. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of background. Typically when we do this levy request, when we have to calculate it in November, we typically know the prior year aggregate levy extension. Like I said, we didn't get that information until right after finance. So we do have that information, and that's been included here. We typically know the prior year CPI. The EAV, we don't know, that's an estimate. And then obviously, like I just talked about, we do not know new property in the levy year either. Those are estimates. Go ahead. So there are two ways that we can increase our extension. Obviously, one, like I talked about, is the increase in CPI. This year we're going to use the 5%, and then the other one is the new property. So when we look at calculating the allowable levy due to inflation, we're going to take the prior year extension, we're going to multiply that by CPI. And so that for this year, tax year 22, we're looking at an increase of approximately $986,000. So that's great news for us. Obviously, we've seen correlating costs go up as well because of CPI, but this is where we anticipate being pretty close to that in anticipated revenue. Go ahead, Christian. When we look at an estimate on the new property, we want to take that new property times the limiting rate to give us a pretty close estimate of $177,800. Now keep in mind that that is a guess. We won't actually know what that comes in at until the following year, till we actually see our extension and see the adjustment in the EAV. So just something to keep in mind. That really is just a ballpark. We want to make it high enough that we recapture any potential for new property. We just don't want to levy too low so that we lose any of those dollars. Go ahead.
How is the limiting rate set?
It's so confusing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No,
it really is. I mean,
I was gonna say, we just get told.
Yeah, that's okay.
by
Yeah,
the
is this the
county
number
that
that's in the
this
form?
is
Yeah,
what
this is
they-
what you
yeah.
use?
it
Okay.
has to do with the equalizing valuation
Right.
that the county adds to get to 33, and it is about 12 different steps. So we do receive word on that limiting rate when we get the agency rate reports from the county. So when we look at our estimates on the 2022 levy, we take our capped extension, we add the increase due to CPI, we add the increase for new property to give us our approximate weighted extension. We also, I am also including a supplemental levy that our friends at Chapman and Cutler have prepared for us for the additional bonds for debt services that we'll include as well. That's levied by the county on our behalf. Go ahead, Christian. This is just a historical, new this year, in the extension, in the finance committee. We talked about that PTAB, the refunds that are due to us because of the request for the settlement on the decrease in valuation from the target appeals. That was the $77,000. That does come back to us. However, it typically, we're seeing, this is brand new legislation. This is the first time we've seen this. So we're gonna get that $77,000 and we're gonna put it in the ed fund. As we talked about, we are also looking at appeals that we've settled on for the tax years 2019 and 2020. That's what we just talked about. Those we would anticipate getting that at some point. We would probably see that within the 2022, I'm hoping, agency tax rate report, so that would be available to us then in the following year's levy. Just I'll let you guys take a look at this. So this would, go ahead. So just, that's okay, you can go ahead.
I'm sorry.
So moving forward again tonight, we'll approve the tentative levy. We'll go ahead and set the date for the public hearing. We'll have the supplemental levy request, and that'll be brought with the final levy in December. That'll move forward to the county as well, and then we anticipate those levy amounts with funds coming in early spring. So there, again, tentative levy, there may still be some fluctuations, and I'll provide some additional information in December, but any other questions? I did have Liz Hennessy kind of take a look through this just to make sure we're not missing any other opportunities for revenue, and I just want to make sure it is a significant increase over what we've done in the past. But, you know, we've had the conversation about just making sure that I would anticipate, unless we've got some big property coming on the tax rolls, we're going to continue to be right around that $5 million mark for anticipation, just kind of planning purposes. And then, you know, we've been right at the 4.995% on the ask. Like I said, we just don't want to lose out on any potential revenue. So
then the total increase is about 6.5.
what we end up getting, we're asking for 8.53. I would anticipate we're going to get right around 6.5.
Right.
Go back
Where we're
one
going to
slide,
end up.
Christian.
Yeah. Christy, can you go back?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Right, yeah, so you can see that requested extension for 2022, that does include bond and interest. It does not include, which is not included in our total levy ask. It's levied not by the district, by the county on our behalf. So, but I did include it in the totals because it is a part of the total. We just don't know, again, what that revenue, the refund recapture is gonna look like. So you can see year over year, we get, you know, just a little bit less than what we asked for, so we just wanna make sure that we're asking for enough, so like I said, so we don't lose out on any additional revenue.
Cause in our ask, we're
Right.
being very conservative in overestimating the total amount of new property. That usually comes in under that, and therefore our actual levy is less.
If you don't ask for it, you won't get it.
You won't get it, and you
Right.
can't get it 2 years from
So
now.
Right.
if we actually had $5 million, then you'd get what?
Then it would be
the
What- what it was.
8.53, right.
Right.
So,
Any questions on the levy?
like I said, this is the tentative, there may be some slight adjustments, going into December, and then we obviously talk through those at finance, but, if I could get a motion, to approve that, and then we can go ahead and get that, that truth and taxation notice, to the Herald for posting as well.
That presentation was good, thank you. I'd like to kind of really walk it
Thank
through
you.
point by point.
It's very complex.
I move to approve the tentative tax levy for 2022 as presented and establish the time of the hearing on the approval of the 2022 tax levy on 14/2022 at the regular meeting of the Board of Education.
Second.
Okay, moved by Marilyn, seconded by Brian. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bednar?
Yes.
Mr. Grodanis?
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney?
Yes.
Mr. Nordmark?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mrs. Bolinski?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0.
And the last item is resolution and the change as treasurer, as Brian reported earlier, with transition of some new folks who serve as our treasurer. We need to update the resolution that now names them appropriately. Any other thing you want to add?
No, I was just gonna say, there was a question at finance about the dates, and so that's why I also included the District 214 resolution, so that we match their dates exactly for the July 1 year, and then we'll go ahead and reappoint July 1, 2023. So, and to clarify, I serve as the treasurer for the district, and Mike Vargas and Nicole Hansen are the assistant treasurers for representing the district for the treasury.
I move to approve the change in assistant treasurers for school district 23 as presented.
Second it.
Moved by Mary Lynn, seconded by Jim. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bednar?
Yes.
Mr. Grodanis?
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney?
Yes.
Mr. Nordmark?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yes.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mrs. Bolinski?
Yes. Motion passed 7-0. Okay, that brings us to old business. Is there any old business? Any new business? Okay, then, we have an executive session. We need to adjourn to executive session for, to discuss the evaluation of the superintendent personnel.
No action.
And no action. So, I need a motion to do that.
Motion.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Kevin, seconded by Becky. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bednar?
Yes.
Mr. Grodanis?
Yes.
Mrs. McClaney?
Yes.
Mr. Nordmark?
Yes.
Mr. Novak?
Yeah.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mrs. Bolinski?
Yes, motion passed 7-0.